Hello and welcome back to Part 2 Uni, part of Southampton Sessions podcast series. I'm Tanisha and today we're talking about something that's on every student's mind before starting university: money. We are here in Highfield Campus studio and this episode is all about student finance in practice, from budgeting and managing your money to understanding the cost of living and planning for your years ahead. We'll be answering the questions students ask us every year, the ones that come up in inboxes, at open days, and in conversations with friends about how to make your money stretch, working while at uni, what to budget for, and how to feel more confident managing your finances at the university. Just a note, we won't be covering fee status or eligibility for student finance in this episode. We're focusing more on the day-to-day reality of student money. Joining me today is student money champion Neo, alongside our two members of financial support team, Kirsty and Melissa. We'll be sharing practical advice, real experiences, and tips to help you navigate student life on a budget. So before we jump into the big questions, Neo, can you tell me much more about your job that's the money champion, and what is it that you do and how is it that you help students?
As a student money champion, my main role is to go and help build an environment amongst students that is easy to talk about money and finances within the university, whilst also supporting the financial support team in their role of helping to support students. So acting a bit as like a conduit between the students and the organisation itself, and helping to build an environment that is a lot more inclusive and a lot better for students to go and get the support that they really need.
That sounds amazing. I love that. I love that you help students. I hope you would be there for me, because the first day I was so scared. But now that's my big question. How much does uni cost? And can you break this down for an undergraduate student or a postgraduate student?
Yeah, absolutely. University in general is a big question. And I'm so glad you highlighted that fear that people can have when they're thinking about it. And that's part of why we're here, is to offer some level of reassurance. From a fee perspective, tuition fees are a flat rate for home UK undergraduate students, and they are set to increase slightly each year. For students coming in 2026, those fees will be £9,790 each year. That rate is the same for an integrated master's year. For international and postgraduate students, the best advice is for them to check out the individual course web pages, because the fees can really differ according to the course and their individual fee status. Fee status, I can elaborate if that's helpful.
Yes, please.
We get a lot of questions on this, especially at open days. And the admissions team ultimately make the decision about fee status, and they'll do that according to whichever relevant regulations there are. They will send the fee status they think a student should have and what their costs will be in their offer letter. And if they're unsure, they will send what's called a fee status questionnaire, and that will just ask for more information about their family and their residency.
Perfect. That sounds very helpful. Thank you. So next question. Can we talk through what a maintenance loan is and what sort of thing it covers at university?
Yeah, absolutely. So a maintenance loan is designed to be a contribution towards your everyday living costs. That's a really important part. It's a contribution towards. We know that even if you are in receipt of the maximum maintenance loan, because it's kind of a sliding scale, it probably won't be quite enough, but we'll get onto that a little bit later. So your everyday living costs are things like rent and food and travel to university and course costs. It's calculated using your household income, and you can actually use a really helpful calculator on the Student Finance England website to get a better idea of what you might expect to receive. You do have to reapply for your maintenance loan for your student finance every year. Your loan can then therefore increase or decrease depending on your household income, and I'll go into detail on that a little bit later. It differs between undergraduate and postgraduate, so it's worth being aware of that. For postgraduate courses, it's one loan that is designed to be a contribution to both tuition and maintenance, whereas of course as an undergraduate home student you get your tuition loan as a separate thing and then your maintenance loan. They're all treated as one at the end, but you get two different amounts. If you're happy to jump in and share kind of how you manage your maintenance loan.
Of course. Leo? So, well, initially in that first week of getting that massive maintenance loan drop, it feels great, but then you have to go along and actually think about how that money is going to be stretched out across the term and then the rest for the year. So in that first year, I was supported quite a bit by my parents, but over the second and third years, been able to pick up a lot more things like part-time jobs to go along and help supplement that, to help make up that shortfall that inevitably does come between the amount of rent that you need to pay, the amount of food that you need to buy, the amount of clothes that you need to get, and the maintenance loan that is given by the government. So I don't know if Tanisha, have you had any experiences similar?
No, I've gotten a loan from back home. So it's just that I think every year I have to give my transcript. And based on that, they're like, okay, so you're in second year. Now we're going to give you the loan. And they just directly transfer to the university bank account. So I don't get any. Yeah, which is kind of sad. But that's okay. Moving on, I wanted to get some details on like how to apply it, where and when to apply the maintenance loan.
Sure. So the good news is that it is a relatively straightforward process. You apply directly through the gov.uk website. Applications typically open in March, and we advise that you get your application in as soon as possible. Lots of students do actually delay that process because they think that they need to have their firm offer before they go through that process, and that's not the case. You can put down your first choice university, obviously Southampton, and you can go through that process. What that means is you can go through the whole process, get your letter, your entitlement letter, and all of your funding is there ready for you for when you start your studies. If you then need to change your university, that's easy and simple to do without delaying receiving your funding. One thing we always highlight to students at open days is when you go through this process, it's really important to ensure that your application is supported with a household income assessment, so something that I mentioned before. And this is important for two reasons. Firstly, it ensures that you receive the full amount that you're entitled to. When I talked about that sliding scale before, it means that you don't just get the minimum, because that will be the default otherwise. It also means that what we also ask is that you or the person or people that are supporting your application, that might be parents or other supporters within your household and family, have the opportunity to share that household income information with the university. It's really important that they do that. That means that we can automatically assess you for the Southampton undergraduate bursary. This means that if your household income is below £36,200 a year, we'll be able to automatically process that bursary for you. This is available for every year of undergraduate study with us, so long as you continue to meet the eligibility criteria and household income thresholds, and are also that home UK student as well.
So now that we have the experts in the room, I really wanted to ask about bank accounts, because I knew nothing about bank accounts when I came here. And even I think students that are coming from sixth forms, they wouldn't know much about bank accounts. So do you have anything that you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. We really recommend that every student does their research on what is a good student bank account for them. There are some wonderful resources out there which compare different student bank accounts, but they have all sorts of things attributed to them. So for Home UK students, there is an overdraft facility, and that's interest free, and that can be really, really helpful because the way that you get paid your maintenance loan as a home student is 3 times over the year. You never get paid like that at any point in your life. But what that can mean is that cash flow can sometimes be a real challenge. Especially when you move into private accommodation, you're paying your rent monthly to then have your instalments 3 times over the year. There can be those pinch points for being tight on cash. So that interest-free overdraft can really help just to provide a bit of a buffer. It's not free money, but it's there as a buffer. And then there's other student bank accounts that maybe offer like a free rail pass and all sorts of other things. So do have a look and do make sure that you've got a student bank account that fits your needs.
One more question that a student has asked is, where should they go if they get stuck on the application process? Because obviously some of them aren't much aware of this, or they wouldn't have parents that have done this before. So what should they do?
Absolutely. And I was completely in that position as well, like 100 years ago. But usually your school or college will be able to offer some support with this. But also Student Finance England have some really brilliant YouTube videos which will walk you through all of the questions that you can think of and the whole process. Neo, I feel like you might be better placed to answer this as well. Have you got any insight on that?
So when I was first starting out, applying for, I guess, all the student finance, my first port of call was going to talk to my teachers at school. I think I was quite lucky. I had quite a good network at school of both alumni who usually came back like 1 or 2 years after leaving, come back to sort of give some tips, but also a school team that was really on top of how to make sure that people set up for the future. So going on just talking to my teachers, any admissions tutors that we have at the school about what kind of opportunities are available in terms of funding, I thought was a really, really good place to start. I was also quite lucky because I have a sister who's slightly bit older than myself. So she'd just been through that process. So I was able to talk to her about all like the hidden costs that I hadn't quite factored in at the start, and where I should be really looking to be submitting my information for things like Student Finance England. So those are like my major points of call, going to talk about school. And then also any family members who have been to university recently, because quite fundamentally they have the most up-to-date information because they've just done it. So yeah, I think those are some real good places to start first.
I'm glad you mentioned your sister, because I think in the first few days before the semester started, my sister was here with me and she came to drop me off. So the first 3 days I was on clouds. I was like, oh, everything's handled, things fine. And then she left me alone. And I was like, oh. So I think I remember on the Highfield campus, I was just walking and I was like, oh my God, I have to do my groceries. I have to go buy everything, my skincare. And then I saw this banner saying, student help, 24/7, help is here. And I'm like, oh, yes. So I ran to student help. I actually had no idea who to ask for. Sat in the queue, went to the person. And then I just vented. Everything came out. And I was like, I'm so sorry. And they're like, no, we have the perfect person. And then they introduced me to the careers portal where I could get part-time jobs, to the budgeting thing and the calculator and everything. So can you elaborate more of how an average weekly budget can be for students I know are out there like me?
Yeah, first, the Student Hub is such a great place to go. It's such a resource, I think, for students at Southampton, because you don't know where to go to. And the Student Hub just answers all of those questions. For weekly costs, it's probably the biggest question that we get from prospective students at events like Open Days. We estimate that students will need between £14,000 to £18,000 each year to be at university to pay for all of their essential costs. Now, remembering there are maintenance loans that can contribute towards that, or other resources students might have, like other kinds of loans or family support. It can be easier to talk a little bit in smaller figures, like weekly figures. So if you think about a student might need, say, £300 or so each week. Now, accommodation will be the biggest cost in that. So if you are in halls, for example, you might pay somewhere around £170 a week. Now, that will include the utilities, the Wi-Fi, the bus pass, and laundry costs. And that's all of the laundry, including all the detergents you might need. If you were in private rented, it will be lower at around, say, £115 per week. And this, of course, are figures for Southampton. But if you were in private rented, you'd also have to budget for those bus passes, utilities, and other costs on top. Food is the next biggest expense, and we think students should budget a minimum of, say, £50 a week, and that's for your groceries. If you can take some steps now, like learn how to cook a few basic meals at home or how to batch cook, that can help to save a lot of money because the food deliveries, they're so tempting. And I totally get when students you're tired, you're running around, things to do, really tempting, but they can put quite a dent in your budget.
Yeah.
Neo's nodding at
Yeah, no, I mean, I was most people managed to learn how to cook and batch cook quite early on. But it was the sights of some of my flatmates when I was in halls in first year, getting deliveries seemingly at least twice a day. That was very, very confusing. I eventually, turns out that they can't afford to do that all the time because, in that first couple of weeks, the student loan feels massive, but, you order a couple of £20 takeaways 3 times in a week and it goes down quickly. So it's something just to keep aware of. Like, if you think you can afford it, then you can. But having that budget that you can make with the help of university or just by yourself and knowing exactly where your money is and where it can go and where it is going is a great way to know if you can go along and afford that takeaway. Because sometimes you need it after, a 5-hour day with an 9 a.m. lecture. Sometimes you want to treat yourself. But understanding whereabouts that money is coming from and where it's going is always a good thing to do.
Absolutely. And we completely advocate for weekly treats, those kind of feel-good moments in your budget, but maybe not too many.
Yeah.
Maybe kind of added sensibly into the budget because you'll have those accommodation costs, you'll have the food costs, and there will be other things like clothing and trips home. And I think sometimes you don't know what those costs might look like until you get here. So the first step I'd say is you can go to the Southampton website and search living costs, and that will give you a very clear breakdown of weekly costs to expect. There's also some really great budgeting resources and tools, including the budgeting sheet that the Student Money Champions had put together. I think when we're looking at those weekly costs, the best preparation is maybe trying to save up a little bit money now. It offers some peace of mind, and it just helps with some of those things that can be unexpected when you arrive.
Yeah, I think the most unexpected was the first week before January because the temperatures dropped. Yeah. I didn't have enough winter clothing, so I had to run to Primark to get my puffer jacket, to get scarves, gloves. I think that was the biggest money I've ever spent.
Yeah.
But I still have those clothes, so it's good.
Yeah, it's hard. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that's life, isn't it? So being able to plan a little bit and then have some extra wiggle room in your budget, have a little bit of savings really helps.
Yeah. So what would you say an international student should prepare for when they're coming here?
So a few things. I think a plan, and when I say plan, a written plan is always the most helpful because that's when I think it really becomes real and a goal. The costs like tuition fees for international students we had mentioned are on the course pages on the website. Visa fees can be found at gov.uk. And for living costs, I appreciate for international students, it can be difficult to know how Southampton might be different from their home city. Yeah. So we recommend this website called Numbeo. It's Numbeo. And you can do real city-to-city comparisons for things like rent costs or food costs. And it just gives you a better idea of what to expect. I think also for international students, that wiggle room I talked about having in your budget is extra important because we know that for some international students, exchange rates can, for instance, maybe affect some of their planning. So it's all about maybe starting with something sensible, having some flexibility, and then being open to, say, when they're here, there's opportunities like part-time work. There's other great ways to save money. So kind of being on the lookout of how to manage finances and also to get help when they need it. But those are just some ideas. I feel like I'm talking to an expert who's been there. Tanisha, what do you think?
I think, what I said about the student hub, when I went there, they gave me a plan, which is what you said. When you write down a plan, it becomes more real. And I am a person who goes according to the plan. I have a checklist. So if for meals, if for groceries we're talking about, I make like 30-day meal plan. So I prep my stuff and I keep it in the freezer, and then that's all done. And the wiggle room is when I want sweet treats.
Yeah.
Or if I'm awake for too long, like if I'm in the campus work and then lectures, and like at the end of the day, I just need like, Kinder Bueno.
Yeah.
I can go get myself Kinder Bueno without thinking much.
Yeah.
So I think that what students can do is plan. And I know it seems like, oh my God, we're just in university, but this is the start of the adult life, because my parents, they threw me out. They're like, no, you figure it out yourself. We did it. You do it for yourself. So, but I still call my mom and cry. That's okay.
A 30-day meal plan is impressive. Do you do that just like on Excel, or is that just on a piece of paper?
I have a diary with all my recipes.
Amazing.
And all my plans.
Awesome.
And that's, I think, but I don't account for days that I feel bad, that I just be like, oh, I don't want to eat home cooked food. So we have some stores on Burgess Road that, it's under like £10. We get amazing meals.
Yeah, that entire little strip by Burgess Road in first year, absolutely fantastic. Because I was up at Glen Eyre, so being able just to go down there on like a cold Tuesday night, be able to just pick up literally absolutely anything, maybe some Chinese, a little kebab, or something like that, absolute godsend.
We have, I think, near Wessex too. We just go up Burgess Road and we have Tesco, Sainsbury's, for little meal deals. Energy drinks. I just need energy drinks on a daily basis. And then, we have some good restaurants that are actually student-friendly, and they have deals.
Yes.
Buy one, get one free, and I'm like, yes. So for days I don't feel like having my own food, that's what I have. So that is what I want to talk about now. I am a person who got work the second I came here, because 2 months I enjoyed, and then I realized, low on money. So what is your advice? Where should we look for part-time work, and what are the options, and what should we do if we're low on money?
Great question. I think that for whether you're in receipt of the maintenance loan or whether you've come with a plan as an international student, what we often hear from students is that there's a gap. What you're talking about for those little treats or for the winter coat. Neo, I know that when we were talking, we've talked about some of the costs that just came kind of out of nowhere and took you by surprise. So there's always those things around the corner. One is trying as much as possible to build those into your plan and build them into your budget. But what are some of those other things that you can do to try and minimise that gap as much as possible? The first one is a little one, but you make the most of your student discounts. There are some great student cost calculators out there as well to help you plan for what some of those kind of unknown costs might be, to start thinking about what are some of those things that I need to think about now before I get to university. As Melissa said, we have a wonderful budgeting sheet. That's a great place to start to think about to start thinking, where am I going to make some of those savings? So in the same way that you did with meal prepping for 30 days, that's a commitment to your budget, right? But then also knowing that creates a little bit of wiggle room for those days where study has been too much and you need to go and get a meal out somewhere. Things like student discounts, savings, reductions, they are great and they offer some wonderful savings for students. What I would say is be really careful that we are only using them for things that we actually need. So only where they actually present a saving, not something that entices us in to actually just spend more money. I know that I've been guilty of that. But yeah, really thinking about what is essential, what is necessary. The other big way that you've already touched on to close that gap is with part-time work. We know that actually 2/3 of undergraduate students are working alongside their studies. So you're absolutely not in the minority if you're working alongside your studies. We know that the cost of your studies is significant, and that is just the reality for many students. People have different views on the most appropriate kind of number of hours to work, and of course that's so individual, and it will depend on your course. For lots of students, we hear that it really depends on their year of study as well. So I would say just be really honest with yourself, try things out, and see how everything is feeling. Are you able to make enough time for your studies without? And I say that recognising that for lots of people, they will be reliant on that stable income. So it's really about talking to people, I would say, getting a good feel of what is manageable. And that point of talking to people, I would say that's a really important thing to do before coming to university as well. We all have really different relationships when it comes to talking about money, don't we? Yeah. And we have different people that we're comfortable in talking with about money. So find somebody that you can start having some of these conversations with, because once we start talking about it, it's great. It's really great to find people that we can be accountable with, that we can be honest with, and that won't necessarily be family for everybody. I appreciate different families approach that differently, but if you can talk to your families or your supporters or people that maybe have been there before, what you were touching on, Neo, that would be really helpful. That really helps also when it comes to things like sussing out how many hours work is going to be achievable. A really wonderful thing about Southampton is that Southampton offers a huge range of opportunity for work. You've already touched on, Tanisha, the wonderful careers team, and the opportunities that are available with them. Not only is it about getting you ready for your career post study, but also they can support you with finding part-time work, and also wonderful internships that run throughout your studies.
So I can add on that.
Yeah.
Throughout my university time here, I think I've gotten pretty much every single one of my internships and placements through that university system. So I remember back in my first year, when I first came here, I thought I'm doing mechanical engineering and aerospace. I'm going to have absolutely no time to do any sort of part-time work. But going on and actually looking at the university systems, they've gotten like a huge array of really, really good casual work placements and part-time arrangements. So in my first year, I ended up working 8 hours a week remotely for the National Motor Museum Trust, which is about 50 minutes outside of Southampton. They have a massive museum there. And I was working there as a researcher for donors. And being able to work 8 hours a week on minimum wage, it may not sound a lot, but then you do the maths and it's around about 100 and 140 pounds a week. And having that little support, that little kick, means I'm able to do stuff like cover rent, put stuff in savings for later. Means I don't have to go on and work every single day throughout the summer to go along and support myself. And it's just a fantastic way to just take the weight off of the financial burden that you can sometimes feel with university and add a little bit more security whilst you're here. So I did that my first year. In my second year, also managed to get a summer internship through the university as well, because the company was advertising through the university for our students. So I was able to go through there, and that got me some good money over the summer, which I'm still sort of using throughout my time now. So being able to go along and actually use those university systems that support to get jobs that are designed for students who they know aren't going to be able to work the 12, 24 hours a week, and doing little bits of work that can still get you money while still also actually building your CV so you're a little bit more employable as well. It's a great side effect, but it's able to really, make sure you're a little bit more resilient when it comes to money.
And £100 to 140 a week is a lot.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
Yeah,
We talk about, if you're not sure if you'll be able to balance work, start with something like 5 hours a week, because even 5 hours a week at about £10 an hour, that's £50 a week. That's really your groceries covered. And then if you can increase from there or do more, great. But even that amount, I don't know, £50 I think is quite a bit. Somebody wants to put that in my pocket.
I think, we also have online jobs that people who don't want to, interact with people, go out there, but still need to get some experience, get that skills. I think I had this gig for the summer, which was the student rooms where we have gotten the questions from. I think you spend 1 hour a day. So that's in summer, you just work an hour on the laptop. and you get £12 a day, which is really good. And you're just helping students out there answer their basic questions or answer their doubts. And if they don't want to come up in open days and ask me, then they can just go on the student rooms and ask, which is, I think it's a really good gig. Yeah, and I did that on the summer. That was really fun.
Yeah, there are a lot of fantastic gigs like that on the My Careers website at Southampton.
Yes.
I just going on there and scrolling through it. I guess like I usually go on there like once a fortnight to see what's about. Because fundamentally that's how I found my first job. I absolutely loved it. It meant over the summer I was able to go to like a few car rallies, which as an engineer was absolutely fantastic. Got to see some real classics, some of the new cars that are out. So being able to just go around for the summer as a student with a little bit of money, whilst earning money, being able to go along and do the things that I really love and enjoy was obviously fantastic. And I know from my friends for a fact that there are a lot of other opportunities about in Southampton where you can earn a bit of money, feel a little bit more secure and do stuff that you really, really enjoy for not a lot or much of your time, really. Absolutely fantastic.
So with the working and the studies and everything, some students might need extra support. So is there something like that available in the university, and how do we access, or do we have to do that before we come to university, or can we do that when we're here?
Yeah, so the University of Southampton actually has a range of support available, which you can find by searching University of Southampton Financial Wellbeing. That will take you to all of our pages and you can find out all about the support that's available. As Neo has talked about already, we work with the Student Money Champions who put on a range of events that is about promoting financial wellbeing, furthering financial education, because that is a big part of it. Getting to grips with our money, making sense of it, having a plan is really key. But if you do find yourself in unexpected financial hardship, there are also some little pots of money available for students that are in those kind of crisis situations or hardship situations. And you can find out all about those on our web pages. Something else that I've talked about previously is the Southampton Undergraduate Bursary. So that's available for home UK students who come from lower household income families. There is a range of support available, but also on top of that, we are, I like to think, a really lovely, approachable team, and we are always available to have one-to-one appointments with students. And it's not just us, it's also our colleagues in the Students' Union are also available to have one-to-one appointments, to work through budgets with students. We're here. If you find yourself in that position, you can, what's wonderful is that you can go to Student Hub, and sometimes they're able to sort out and give you what you need and the answer that you need right there and then. And if it's appropriate, they will then signpost you either to ourselves or to the Students' Union, and we're so happy to help and support you through that.
It's such a good point. I just wanted to add that we hear from students sometimes where there is just worry and panic. There might not actually be a problem, but it's just that opportunity to talk to somebody, whether it's the financial support team or the Students' Union, just to clear the air, get a sense check. And I think that emotional support with finances is just so critical.
And I'll add, as a Student Money Champion, if you do end up coming here as a student, we hold our drop-ins in the library very often. So literally you walk through the double doors into the library, and in the foyer, we usually be there at least once a fortnight, just there to answer any questions and spread some awareness of the new things that are going on. So as SMCs, there's a team of about 6 or 7 of us where we go along and generate a monthly newsletter as well. So you can sign up to that as a student and get some tips and tricks about stuff that we found as students that can really help, go along and stretch your money a little bit further. But also in those drop-in sessions, you can come along and talk to us about any sort of troubles that you do have. And those could be very simple stuff like, we get literally everything on library drop-ins, to be quite honest. So, sometimes it's talking about the cost of going home and how we can save a little bit of money on that, whether it's, using train line to get a rail card or something like that, or finding a cheaper way home. So sometimes I travel home with one of my friends, Keishan, who also came from the same school as me back in London. And sometimes because he has a car, we just drive back together, and we find if we split the fuel cost, it's so much cheaper than paying for that return ticket to London Waterloo and back, which can sometimes be like £40-50. So saving costs that way, and just talking to other students is a real good way of actually figuring out it may not be the most massive problem in the world, but some sort of like demystifying the somewhat confusing terms that may be around, and just talking to other students is a real good way to go along and make yourself feel a bit more at ease.
Neo, do you think those drop-ins have been helpful to get students to think talking about money is pretty normal?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a part of my role as an SMC. It's like our headline role is to go on and try and make an environment that's a little bit more comfortable to talk about money. It's something that people, don't end up talking anything near enough about. And considering that, everybody has to spend it, everyone's in pretty much the same situation if our challenges are somewhat different. Everybody's getting, a sort of maintenance loan. Finding ways to just go along and talk in a very open space, a very non-judgmental space about what financial challenges there are and how we can go along and support one another. I thought it's something that we really need to encourage. So, being able to talk to people at those library drop-ins and just get a sense of, what is the mood, what is the feel, what are the problems? Because then we fundamentally feed that back to you guys at the financial support team of what the problems are within students and how the university can best help us as students and support us through our studies. So, it's really important.
Absolutely.
I think my first experience with finance team was when I broke my leg during December. I think it was my first year, and I slipped and I dislocated my knee, and it was so painful. But the pain of thinking, oh, I can't work now to get money. Oh my God, I was freaking out. And I think I contacted my Pat, and he directed me to Student Hub, and he was like, just tell them your honest position, how much you have, what you think you might require, and they might do something for you. Then I realized we have an international student support fund, and I gave all the documentation that was needed. And thankfully, the only reason I'm here now is because of you guys.
Oh, that's so great.
You guys helped me that 1 month, and I was like, oh, thank God, because I had to order food instead of cooking it because I couldn't stand, and I was on bed rest for a whole month. Oh my God.
And that exactly illustrates what those funds are there for. You found yourself in an unexpected financial hardship where you were unable to work, and therefore there is that support there to help you through that time and to just give you that bit of time that you needed to recover and to support yourself. So that's great to hear.
Thank you so much.
I think it does illustrate a very good point. Is that, as students, going out for the first time in the world, those unexpected things do happen, and you can be put in unexpected positions where you may need a little bit more support. And the only thing we can really do as people is go and ask.
Yeah.
And all we can really do is go and ask the people that we know, the people about. So you said you went to your PAT first, who directed you to the team. So going on and asking people what is out there and what's possible always goes a very, very long way if you are in those difficult positions.
Yeah, I think it's important to ask for help when you need it, because I was in a situation a couple of times where I was too ashamed to ask. So I just went to Susu Advice Center, and they were like, it's okay. You're just one of many that has gone through it. It's okay. And they have helped me a lot of times. So with working part-time and having lectures, how do you kind of juggle between work and lectures at the same time, and what to do when you have that stress of, assignments and everything? And if that's not there, how do you look for jobs here?
Yeah, so I guess since I'm pretty much doing it now, as a student money champion, this is what I'm doing around about 5 hours a week. And right now, as I'm filming this, it's also during exam week. So I had an exam on Wednesday and doing this now. So it's very much just about understanding the amount of time that you have as a student and how you want to balance it. So I remember back to my first year, I thought, coming here, doing a quite challenging engineering degree, that I wouldn't have the time or the time span or the resources to go along and actually work part-time. But having seen my timetable, understanding the cadence of the work and the type of challenge of the work, I thought I might as well push the boat out and see if I can do something a little bit more. So picking up something very small, as I said, it was 8 hours. My contract was 8 hours for my first job. And my boss was extremely accommodating. Obviously, she advertised the role through the university, so she knew she was going to get students. So there was already that understanding there that some weeks I might not be able to work because I need to focus on university work, but some other weeks I'll be able to work more because maybe like the holidays or the summer. So being able to find a role that really suits you and sort of cadence of work that you have as a student, I found was really good, and be able to actually balance it. Because in my first year, I think I had about 20 hours of lectures plus coursework. And then you have to go along and do your own research outside of that. So it was already quite full on, but understanding in totality where your time is, where your time isn't. And then also having fun besides that, managing your work and your actual university work side by side is always really a skill that you have to pick up over time.
Yeah.
That's something that you do pick up eventually. Like you do, if you push the boat out enough, you do enough, you get enough experience, you end up managing it. I mean, when I was 18 years old, I was absolutely terrible at time management. But over time, you build up. I'm in my third year now, and I think I do about 2 or 3 different roles along the side of my course. So, pushing out the boat and really understanding where you are as a student is very useful.
Yeah, and it's really important to get jobs that are understanding that you're a student, because I work in the Susu shop and the reception, and I also work as a lead ambassador. So thankfully, all these 3 jobs, they have the 0-hour contract. So if I have a shift, but I'm like, no, I need to focus more on my assignment, or I have a lecture during that, I can't. I think on the first day of my job, they told me you need to prioritize your studies. Jobs can come and go. You need to prioritize your study now. And we're understanding. If you give us a day of notice that, tomorrow I have a lecture, that's okay. That's completely fine. Which is so helpful. Because I think I've missed a few of my shifts because I had a seminar or I had a lecture that was an Avenue campus. So I think that's really, really helpful.
For most of the roles that are advertised throughout university usually come with that understanding that, your studies come first.
Yeah.
And, there are some weeks where, I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't really do much. I'm stuck in the workshop because I have to do some coursework. People are very much understanding that, your course comes first, but this job is a secondary fun thing that everybody wants you to do.
Yeah. So in terms of living costs and actually keeping our spending down, what would you guys suggest? Like how could, the university, how does the university help us? Or how could we help ourselves from day-to-day life?
The help yourself is really important because I think that's where it starts. So it starts with the written budget. It starts with probably a check-in with yourself pretty regularly. I think we need to make time for our finances, and whether that's once a month, sit down with your budget, open your bank accounts, look at what your spending is. I think very often our budgets can be affected by what we can call leaks. And the money sort of drips out on whether it's coffees or other small things that might cost £2, £3, £4. And before you know it, £30 extra might have been spent in the week that you didn't intend. So I think it's about there's a little bit of admin that comes into play, but I think a person can really figure out how best to do that according to their schedule and what works for them. And simply just paying attention, just having a look. So, of course, there are really helpful discounts in other ways, but I think really trying to have a budget and sticking with it is really important. And also, if it doesn't work out and things go completely upside down, to just maybe get some help and start over again.
I think I had some friends who were really scared to open their bank account. They were like, no, I don't want to look at it. And I'm like, no, we need to. I think it's time of the month we need to.
Absolutely. I mean, if you don't look at it, you don't know it's there. So I mean, that may feel like a comfort once or twice, but, as people, we need to actually have a look and reckon with ourselves what we are spending, what we aren't spending, where we need to cut down, where we can maybe afford to go along and spend a little bit more. But keeping that budget, I know we keep saying budget a lot, it's not something mystical. It doesn't have to be something like, absolutely fantastic and massive and like, a 30-sheet Excel file. It can very much just be a jot down of this is how much I expect to spend on food. This is how much my rent is. This is how much I expect, spend on traveling around and about. And just understanding, what the costs you think are, and then going and having a look at your bank account and looking at your transactions and saying, okay, those weren't on my budget. Do they need to be my budget? Like, if I'm finding that I'm spending £10 a week in the Susu shop, do I need to be spending that £10? Sometimes you do. Sometimes you're on campus for 8 hours at a time and, you need to spend that money because, you need to have lunch. But, figuring out if those are real costs that you actually need to have or if they are costs that are, just like, superfluous. You didn't need to spend that. I bought, I don't know, a can of Coke from a corner shop when I didn't need to. figuring out if that's something that you can absorb into your budget or something that you probably may need to cut down on is something that you really, is very helpful. And budgeting and understanding yourself as a student whilst you're here is something that's really what, this entire experience is all about when it comes to finances, at least anyway.
I have done a thing that I had nuggets in my freezer, but yet I still went to McDonald's and got the expensive nuggets just for the dips. Could have just gone there and asked for the dips, but yeah, I realized that way later in the year. I was like, oh no, we have it in the freezer. We should just go in the freezer.
If that's it, it's sometimes asking yourself, do I need this or do I want this?
Yes.
To those points that you've just described. And I think that's such a great habit that builds, we can build for later in life as well, because it's developing some of those really good money habits that will just carry on. And just something simple. Yeah, do I need it or do I want it?
Yeah.
Can you tell us something more about how the university would help us? Like,
Yeah.
The SUSU Give It a Go.
Yes.
Like the Faith and Reflection Center.
Yeah, no. So I guess Faith and Reflection Centre is a good place to start. So I think it's every Tuesday afternoons. They go along and do Toasty Time, which is a very useful place where you can go down to the Faith and Reflection Centre and you just pick up a free toasty and a free cup of tea, a cup of hot chocolate, a cup of coffee. And it's a very much an open space. Anybody can go. You don't have to sign up or anything. You can literally just turn up on the day. And it's just a good place to get some free food. Who doesn't want free food? It's a good toasty. I've had one in the past. So it's a way for people just to go along and get a little bit of extra support if they need it. And then, moreover, with the stuff at the Student Union, they have a lot of stuff to do with like housing support.
Yes.
So I know in my first year, it was a very big thing of, picking up your first house. And you have to go along and rent out probably a place with some of your friends that you've made in your first couple of weeks, which can be a bit daunting. But from a financial side, the biggest thing for me was you don't usually realize how big that deposit is going to be. Mm-hmm. And, for my first house, for example, I think it was around about £300. And, when you are coming towards the mid to end of November, somebody's telling you have to go along and find £300 out of nowhere can be a bit of an ask.
Yes.
So going to SUSU, they have a great advice centre there to do not everything, not just housing, but, figuring out how you can get the deposit, how the deposit actually works. Make sure you're signing up with the right agencies if you're getting landlords and stuff like that. Figuring out if this is like a real cost or something they're adding on in post for what is a great port of call. And then moreover, we've mentioned several times before, Student Hub. They're absolutely fantastic in pointing you in the right directions, making sure you go to the right team. I mean, more often than not, if it's a financial question, then they're going to direct you to the financial support team, obviously. But going to them and asking for a little bit of advice, sometimes people there already know the answer. So that's actually a really good place whilst you're here on campus to go along and get some really good advice about money.
That's amazing. Do you guys have any little bits and pieces to add on your experience, or if you've had some students ask for some, specific problems that you would like to warn us about?
The thing that I enjoy most about doing this role is being able to chat to students and watching the weight lift off of their shoulders as you're talking. Because often I think when we are in situations where we're worried about money, that can start to eat into every area of our lives. And there's been some huge studies done recently to indicate kind of how that has an impact on our academic performance. Whereas actually I think so much can be helped, not necessarily solved, but helped by talking about it. And that's our biggest thing. Our kind of unofficial strapline is please don't suffer in silence. Yes. Please reach out and talk to somebody. We're always happy to chat. That would be my...
Oh, absolutely. We would so much rather somebody just come forward with worries or questions than exactly what Kirsty is saying, suffer in silence. I would add to that I completely understand that money and finance seems like a big topic. It can seem confusing and just really something that nobody wants to deal with when there are all these other fun things to do in life, right?
Yeah.
But taking the time just to get to know some basics is really empowering. And I think it can give everybody just a greater sense of control about things, and much greater peace of mind, especially as they're going to some, big change of starting uni. So I would just say, just take some steps, get to know some basics about your money.
So Neo, our money champion, you mentioned about the hidden costs that your sister helped you cover.
Yeah.
Is there any tips and little things that you want to share that can help a first year or a second year person go through?
Yeah. So on the hidden cost front, very much, I guess, starting to build a picture of what you think you might need, and then understand, well, before you come to university, build a picture of what you think you might need, and understand that it's probably not extensive enough. So one of the things like my sister helped point me towards is the fact that I done along and bought all my stuff like bedding and everything for my room, but I completely forgotten anything about like cutlery and dinner plates and stuff like that. So that's just another, about 50 to like £60, which needs to go down to like Dunelm and buy. But that's like a cost that you needed to go along and consider. And stuff like, clothing throughout the year, the clothing that you come to university with is not the stuff that you're going to, finish with when you go to graduation. So you have to actually understand, you may need to spend about like £100 a year on buying some new clothes throughout the year because, stuff breaks. And then, moreover, as a student, something that my sister, because she has a similar dyslexia to me, is getting some support from Student Finance England. So they actually have some really good disability schemes. So one of them is DSA. I need to go along and get myself a new computer for starting university. And what I realized through DSA is that I was able to go along and get some quite substantial funding towards that. And then on top of that, the University of Southampton has a grant for disabled students of like certain backgrounds to go along and help buy new technology. So I think they gave me around about £250 my first year to go along and help me buy a new laptop, which is a complete godsend because, new laptops and new computers these days can be, £600-700. Yeah. So getting the money from the university to help along with that was absolutely fantastic. But if I was a student going back and joining today, what I really say is, I have 3 tips mainly. The first one would be just to go along and talk to other people. Talk to students at your sixth form or your college or people around you in your family. Ask for them about the sort of money tips that they may have and the sort of money that they think they're spending on the day-to-day. So just so you can get a picture. And then off the back of that, I would say probably build yourself up like your own like mock budget and how much you think you're going to spend. I think we said about the £14,000 to £18,000 a year figure before. You need to go along and try and make something that looks like that figure. So that's taking into everything, your accommodation, your food, your travel, going to and from home and stuff like that. Build a picture because, it could end up being a lot less than you expect it to be. It could end up being a lot more, quite honestly, maybe a lot more, but you don't know until you actually do it. So I would say definitely recommend, make sure that you go along and do that before you come to university. And my final tip would be, make sure you understand what you're actually eligible for as a student. I think we touched on earlier about the maintenance loan and making sure that we are getting the full amount out of it. So, I think on the minimum scale this year, it's around about £4,500, but the absolute maximum that you could get is around about 10. So making sure that you're getting all the information in for that and understanding what you're actually eligible for as a student. I know for some of my friends who are medics, you can get stuff like grants from the NHS. I think this year it's around about £5,000 a year, but you obviously check before you come to university to understand that you know how much you're actually able to get as a student. I think those are my 3 main tricks and tips for joining before university. But fundamentally, just make sure you're asking questions and you're fully aware of where you are as a student before you come here.
And that is all we have time on today's episode. Thank you, Neo, Kirsty and Melissa for joining us. This is such useful information. I wish I'd known this while I was applying to uni. I hope our discussion today has helped some of you in just the smallest way with what can be quite a complex and maybe scary part of the university application journey. If you have any questions or topics you would want our future podcast episodes to cover, drop us a comment and we'll see what we can do. Good luck with everything this year brings, and we all hope to see you on another episode of Southampton Sessions.